Welcome to the broadcast. My name is John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy, and thanks again for joining. Excited to have another opportunity to bring some real estate training to my Global Real Estate School students. And if you are not a member of Global Real Estate School, well, that's okay as well. We appreciate the opportunity to have you with us as well. I'm going to just jump out very quickly and make sure we are broadcasting loud and clear. So let me go out to the website and we'll see if we are out live in YouTube land, and it looks like we are. So things are going good. Remember, you can type a question in, and if you have a question, just type that into the chat box. I will come out and take a look at that from time to time. Well, we want to encourage you to be sure and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. And if you need some help with the real estate exam, you can hop on over to Global Real Estate School. We've got lots of resources there. Appreciate all the new students who are signing up. We've been busy the last few days, so that's exciting. And I hope that you, I want to remind some of the new folks who are on, I'm going to be live streaming every Monday through Friday during the kind of the shutdown, I guess you could say, of our business world and economy. I know they're encouraging a lot of people to stay at home. And so I'm doing live streaming from 4 to 5 for Global Real Estate School students. And on Friday mornings at 11, I'm doing live streaming from a different YouTube channel. It's businesstechguytv.com, businesstechguytv.com, businesstechguytv.com. And next week, I'm going to show you my secret to streaming from all of this through to YouTube by using a unique domain name. So be sure and check that out as well. And one other quick reminder, the testing agency is postponing the exams through April the 13th is the word I've been told now. That's okay, don't panic. We've got lots of resources you can study and prepare if you finish the exam. Many of you still probably not finished the test, or my exam, so you can't set up the examination till after you complete or finish. So it's not a big deal if you're still in the course, but I know there's a few of you who have finished the course, and I encourage you to stay focused, keep studying, and remember, if you need a copy of my real estate exam coach, let me know. It's free for Global Real Estate School students. I'll put that in your dashboard. Those of you who are new signing up, it's already been included in your dashboard, so you should have access to it. You have access to it in a different format, in a different way. And I'm going to actually probably, if we get time later toward the end, I'll show you how you can access that through the university. So anyway, and if any of the students who don't have that and would prefer, we'll make sure that happens for you as well. Okay, well, we are going to go out and we're going to get started right now. All of anyone who's requested access to my real estate exam coach, if you go into your dashboard and you go to the home button right up here, you can then, normally after you've opened it up, a lot of times it may be under the completed section, and I'm working on them to find out how to leave that over in the home library. It's probably something very easy, and I just need to reach out to technical support. So we're going to go through my real estate exam coach. You should have access to this as well. And we started on property ownership, and we were actually through, we have gone through property ownership. We went through the review quiz, and now I believe it's telling me that we have to do review quiz part A again, but we've done that, so we'll fix that here shortly, and I can go in a different route and take a look at that. So we're going to actually, just because we did that yesterday, I'm going to go out to, I think I know why, because I restarted that in a different browser window. So my apologies, but it will just take me a second. And we're going to just drop down and we will go right past the exam. I was going to do the exam number 2, but I think we'll go past that as well, because we are in property ownership part C. We have part C and part D, so we're going to go right into part C right here. And we are on liens. So we're in property ownership. Now I'm in the course where I create the course, but I'm just doing this to drop us down so that we'll kind of pass all the other information. I know why it reset us back to the beginning, because I uploaded a brand new version last night after we finished, because there was not a typo, but I had the wrong word on one of the questions, and I was finishing up a few other things that I had found, so I re-uploaded a new module, and that's why it was taking us back to the beginning. So they're kind of open modules, but the exams, I do have you required to pass those, but I'm going to fix that, and we'll take care of that. So anyway, you're looking at it in a different format, but don't panic. We'll kind of go through all this together. All right, so we're going to be over in liens, and we're going to talk about this area right here. I wonder if that brings me. There we go. That'll give us a little bit better look. So, well, one of the things we need to remember is that liens arise when a party who owes a debt, the lienee, to another, a lienor. The debt can be from an agreement that the parties had with each other, or the lien could be created from the judicial system because of legal action. Liens can further be classified as either general or specific, voluntary or involuntary. And let's take a closer look at how liens work. So you're going to have some items like this, and I just wanted to have interactivity, a little bit of interactivity for you. So if you just press the plus button, you can discover more information about a general lien. And the one thing that's interesting about a general lien is that it attaches to all of the debtor's property. Key point, all property. I'd write that down. So both real and personal property is a general lien. You might find a general lien if someone was to get a judgment against you. If they get a judgment against you, then you can go after their car, you can go after their furniture. Now, keep in mind, every state has limitations and specifics that you would have to follow. But for the exam, a general lien attaches to all of the debtor's property, So make sure you remember that. Now, it's different than a specific lien, because a specific lien attaches to one specific item. A good example would be a car loan or a real estate loan. You're using your car as collateral most of the time, or you're using your house as collateral most of the time. And so a specific lien is to only one specific item. So if you have a car loan or a home loan, that would be a specific lien. And a voluntary lien, again, goes along with a car loan or a home loan. You voluntarily go out and take out that loan against that item. It's something that's done willfully. Where an involuntary lien is actually created through your actions. See that? You don't pay your taxes and they get a tax lien against you. That's an involuntary lien. You didn't voluntarily go out and have the IRS put an IRS lien against you, or a delinquent real estate tax lien. So I think those are pretty self-explanatory. And then statutory and equitable. Statutory is the amount you owe due to non-payment of a debt. If you do not pay your contractor for the work on your home, they're going to put a statutory lien to make you pay back that debt you owe the contractor. Where an equitable lien is more, the courts are more concerned about what is a fair and just amount that you should have to pay due to your actions in the judicial lien that's been filed. For example, you drive your car recklessly, have an automobile accident, and someone's hurt very bad or even killed, and someone sues you, the courts will come up normally with an equitable lien that because of your wrongdoing, you need to pay a certain amount of money to this individual, and that would be what we would look at as an equitable lien. So for the exam, just going to come over here to a different camera angle here. For the exam, just remember that general liens attaches to real and personal property. Specific liens attach to a specific item. It's very similar to an automobile loan or a home loan. Those are specific liens. And then we have what are called statutory liens, right? And equitable liens. And statutory liens, the court says, hey, you had work done and this person filed a mechanics lien because you did not pay for that work. So you're going to need to pay that lien, that debt back. That's an example of a statutory lien. And an equitable lien is just what the court feels is fair and just due to your negligence, that they feel it's kind of that, I guess you could say a penalty maybe, but it's the amount that the court believes you should pay due to your negligence or wrongdoing, and they feel like that's a just compensation for your negligent actions. So keep that in mind. That would be a judicial equitable, because and it would also be categorized as involuntary, right? You didn't voluntarily go out and do that to create that. It was your action, so it's involuntary, statutory, or judicial, pardon me, and also equitable. Okay, so keep those in mind. They love those questions about liens, and you'll do fine on the real estate exam. So, okay, we will go on down now. Remember, this is an important point here. Liens. Remember that lien priority goes to the type of lien and the date and the time the lien was recorded. Okay? Now, I'm going to just bring my iPad up so that I can draw for you a little bit and show you. Hopefully I'll get the code here. 7776. The reason it gives me a code is that this is an application called Reflector, and it's for teachers. And if I was in a classroom, I could literally, if one of my students we were on the same Wi-Fi and they had a code, that I could give them the code and I could stream their iPad to the projector, and the other students in the course could see that. They would be able to write that information down. And so it's kind of a neat way to do something a little differently here. Now, I want to talk about lien priority very quickly here. And what I want you to understand is this. Liens, very important that we remember it's the date and the time of recording. This is very, very important. Now, recording a lien does what? It serves to give what we call constructive notice. In other words, when you record something, it gives constructive notice, and this constructive notice is to the whole world. About this lien. Now, let's just kind of very quickly understand what we're talking about here, and I'm just going to come back over here to talk to you. So we record the note. Actually, remember a couple of weeks ago I mentioned to you I was going to check on that about the note being recorded. Normally the note is not recorded, so I did mention I would follow up on that. I guess it could be recorded, but generally the note's not recorded, but the deed of trust or the mortgage is recorded. So I did follow up on that information for you. By the way, if there's ever an attorney or another instructor that's watching, and you want to type something in the chat box that I should be aware of or mention or I forget, please feel free to do that. I'm always open if I make an error. The other day I mentioned about implements when we were talking about implements, and I said fruits of nature, and implements are fruits of industry. Remember, fruits of nature are things like trees and bushes and plants and so forth. Implements are annually cultivated crops. It's fruits of industry, or fracturus industrialis, fruits of industry. They're implements, they're considered personal property, and we learned yesterday that the tenant can go back in and cultivate those crops, actually harvest those crops because they're personal property. So the note's not recorded, but the deed of trust and the mortgage are recorded. And we're talking about lien priority, so it's very important that you record that information as soon as possible. So let's go back over here and just take a quick look at this. Because if we had a first mortgage and we had a second mortgage and we had a mechanic's lien, and let's say the first mortgage was $100,000, and the second mortgage was $25,000, and the mechanic's lien was $5,000. Now, we have also delinquent taxes of $1,200. But remember, we studied that the delinquent taxes real estate taxes and special assessments go to the front of the line at the foreclosure sale. So we're going to move the delinquent taxes up here because they're going to get paid first. And then we could also say that there was an IRS lien for $30,000. Now, at the foreclosure sale, I just kind of want to walk you through this. So remember, recording gives constructive notice to the whole world. Liens, it's the date and time of recording. However, we have an exemption here with real estate taxes. They're always going to get paid first. Plus, don't forget, special assessments. Same weight as a real estate tax lien. So if you were delinquent on special assessments, those would go to the front of the line too. Everybody with me so far? Remember, you can type questions in if you have any questions. So we're at the foreclosure sale. the first mortgagor, the sheriff opens up the foreclosure sale, and let's just say that the fees to do the sale and all the cost and fees for the sale are $2,000. I'm just throwing a number out. So the first mortgage has $100,000 and $2,000 and $1,200. So the first bid is going to come from this person right here, the first mortgage, and they're going to bid $100,000. This is what they would bid, $100,000 they would bid $103,201. Why are they bidding that? Because that will take care of paying the taxes and the cost of the sale and their mortgage. So if this second person thinks that this house is worth $200,000 easily, I mean, if everybody thinks it's worth $200,000, guess what this person's going to bid? They're going to bid $128,201. They just added their $25,000 that's owed them, right? So they just bid $128,000. Now the mechanics lien, if they thought they could get their money back and they thought, hey, this is a great buy for $128,000, because that house has got to be worth $200,000 the way it sits, they're going to bid let's just say here, $132,201, because they have to put $5,000 on top there. Now, let's just say there's someone else at the sale, and they think this house is worth $250,000 if they just go in and paint it and clean it up and doll it up. And so they're going to bid, $133,000. Somebody else bids $140,000, and they go $150,000. Somebody else says $160,000. And we go all the way up, and it's finally sold for $172,000. Let's just say $178,000. Because these people they think they're just going to move in it. So it's sold for $178,000. Now, look what happens here, though. I thought I had a highlighter, and I don't see it. So let's go with the red. So we sold it for $178,000. Now, they get paid, right? The delinquent taxes, there's enough for them to get paid. There's enough for these people to get paid. There's enough for the mechanics lien to get paid. And actually, there's enough to pay the IRS lien. And there happens to be approximately $5,800 left over. I'm doing rough calculations. I could be off. Who gets that $5,800? Because the first mortgage got paid, the second mortgage got paid, the mechanics lien got paid, the delinquent taxes got paid, the IRS got paid, and the cost and fees got paid. So who gets the money that's left over? The defaulting borrower. And believe it or not, that has been a test question, or I shouldn't say. I have no idea what's on the exam, okay? So if I say that, it's like a bird told me, okay? That's been one of my test questions, I should say. So the question is, if there's, if the defaulting borrower at the tax sale and everybody gets paid and there's money left over, who gets the money? Well, the defaulting borrower would get any money that's left over. So just remember that, the people who were foreclosed on. But do you kind of see why date and time of recording is important? Because if you're going to loan somebody money and you're going to take a second or a third out, you have a mechanic's lien, you want to get in there and get paid as soon as possible. Because what would have happened in this case if instead of 178, it only sold at the courthouse steps for 103,201? Well, in that case, the first mortgagor gets the property and they're going to have to resell it. The first mortgage, senior mortgage gets paid the money. I shouldn't say mortgagor. The first mortgage gets paid. And so the second, the IRS and the mechanics liens, they all get wiped out. So they're all wiped out. And the first mortgage gets the property and they're going to go and resell it. And let's say they can only sell it for $76,000 after a good faith effort. Well, how much did they pay for it? They paid $103,201. So $103,201 minus $76,000. Let's see what kind of a hit the bank took. So the bank was short $27,201. And guess what they will get? And this is a test question. They can go get what is called a deficiency judgment. And remember that a deficiency, it's a judgment that's a general lien, and it attaches to both real and personal property. And in fact, they can probably get a garnishment against your wages and other items like that. And remember, general lien, real, attaches to real and personal property. So I know we kind of drew this out, and I didn't realize that it would all seamlessly come around to cover a lot of various points, but it was very important for us to go through this exercise because I wanted you to see the importance of date and time of recording. We talked about constructive notice. It gives notice to the whole world there's a lien. And then we went through the foreclosure sale, covered a possible exam question about who gets paid if there's money left over, the defaulting borrower. But then we also flipped it and said, well, what if there wasn't enough money to pay all the liens in this example? There's a shortfall after the lender tries to resell the property. Guess what happens? They could get a deficiency judgment against the defaulting borrower, and that would be a general lien that would attach to real and personal property. Okay? So we covered a lot of ground there, but you did a good job, and I appreciate your hard work there. All right, I'm going to bring the iPad down here, and we're going to, so remember, lien priority goes by the type of lien and the date and time, the date and time of recording. Now, one other thing, and I want to make sure you understand this because they love this for the real estate exam. Real estate taxes and special assessments remember, because this is a tax lien, this is a tax, a special assessment. They always take top priority at the foreclosure sale. So don't forget that. Very, very important. Okay? Keep that in mind. All right. You're doing a great job, and I'm very, very proud of you. And I'm going to keep us moving along here. So we're going to keep going along. We're going to come back over to the computer, and we will keep right on rolling here. So have a little video here next. I talk about general, specific. Don't forget that there's lots of videos in your course material, and I'll show you something that's kind of cool here. It's a little complicated, but it's very cool, but I think you can handle it. So here's a test question. If you were asked to describe what the difference is between a general and a specific lien, which answer would you suggest fits the best description? General liens are normally filed on personal property, not real property. General liens are similar to mechanics liens and need to be filed within a certain time frame. General liens may be filed by an attorney. Specific liens can be filed by any consumer. General liens can be filed on real property, while specific liens can only be filed on specific property. So general liens are normally filed on personal property, not real property. General liens are similar to mechanics liens and need to be filed within a specific time frame. General liens may be filed by an attorney. Specific liens can be filed by any consumer. And general liens can be filed on real and personal property, while specific liens can only be filed on specific property. Well, I'm going to take this last one. I hope that's right. That's a tough question. Maybe it's not that tough now, but I did get it correct. I didn't read that correctly the first time. That's why you really need to read the questions 2 and 3 times, okay? So I read that incorrectly the first time, and it kind of threw me off, and then I was a little bit second-guessing myself. But read the questions 2 or 3 times, okay? All right, let's continue on. Remember, general liens, all of the debtor's property, real and personal. Specific liens only against specific property. All right. We have a couple of, I throw some flashcards in periodically. This is a definition that I don't think I cover in the main course. Maybe so, but it's here, and we'll go over it. It's an attachment, having the court hold custody of the property before a judgment is issued. And actually, I do cover this in the main course. Real property is attached through a writ of execution. It protects the plaintiff for a property or funds to be paid if they win. So an attachment is, basically a good example of this, and some of you may be younger and don't remember, but O.J. Simpson, when he was being sued by the Goldman family, Ron Goldman family, he had a book coming out and some other income coming in, and that was before he went to prison over the ordeal out in Las Vegas. Well, the Goldman family moved to file like what is called a writ of execution, or have the court attach or freeze some of his assets so that he couldn't move those around or sell them off and get rid of the money before the lawsuit ended. So a good example would be if someone was negligent, and let's say a doctor was negligent, and you filed a lawsuit against him, and you had a pretty good odds of winning the lawsuit, is what I wanted to say. And the doctor knew this. Well, he or she might want to try to sell off some of their assets or move some things around, deed property out to a family person to avoid losing that in a lawsuit. Well, the attorney for you is probably going to file some type of writ of execution against that doctor to freeze their assets. So when the doctor goes and tries to move those, the title company is going to see, again, those are recorded at the courthouse to give constructive notice to the whole world that, hey, there's a lawsuit pending, les pendens, and therefore you'd kind of be frozen from doing any of that. Does that make sense? So the attachments, when the court just steps in and you file les pendens or the attachment, and then that's recorded at the courthouse, constructive notice, remember the whole world, and then you can't, virtually your hands are tied from moving that property around. I mean, you probably still could, but that brings up a couple of good points to remember in that, sorry, it's 4:30. It's been a busy day for me today, but a couple of good points for you to remember is that, number one, always go check the courthouse and see if there are any, that's why we record constructive notice. But number two, go through a title company. That's your main thing, is get title insurance, go through a title company. They're going to search that for you, and they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, we can't issue title insurance because there's a lawsuit pending on this. And if they miss that and don't catch it and authorize title insurance, then you have insurance against that defect or that problem. So just things to kind of keep in mind and remember. That's an attachment, and remember, goes along with this lawsuit pending, les pendens, and so forth. We've talked about this. Recording gives constructive notice to the whole world about your obligation. And don't forget, we talked about that as well. Real estate taxes take top priority at a foreclosure sale. Mechanics liens, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Just one couple of points I want to make you aware of. Number one, keep in mind that mechanic liens date and time of recording. That's how they will be paid out at a sale. But the one thing I think that's important for you to remember is that who can file a mechanic's lien? Well, the general contractor could. The people who provided work or services, subcontractors, can file. And anyone who supplied goods could file a mechanic's lien. Now, it's very important that if you're building a new home, you have someone like a title company or an escrow agent disperse the funds for you. We had a situation here in my area where a gentleman is a builder, great guy. I mean, he's a good friend of mine. He went through my real estate school. And my mom and dad he was building a house for my mom and dad. He had a subdivision going up, and he was building a bunch of houses. And I remember taking my dad over when my dad was answering a question for him. Now, my mom and dad were going through the bank, so the bank was issuing him lien. He had to give the bank lien waivers, and then the bank would give him his funds. So I remember my dad and I went over there, and we were meeting, and he was driving a big truck, and he had this subdivision and all these workers. And I remember thinking, man, he's got the world by the tail. I mean, this guy was like just rocking it. And I remember thinking, man, he's doing some cool things. And, kind of at the time wishing I was, had a big project like him. I don't want to say I was envious, but because I wasn't envious, but I thought it was cool. And I kind of, would have liked to have been in his shoes because he had this big subdivision and driving this big fancy truck and all this stuff going on, and it was pretty cool. Well, about 2 weeks later, word started getting around that there were some financial problems going on with the builder in this subdivision. My dad was a little worried, my mom and dad, but the bank was issuing the lien waivers, and the title company, but the guy across the street was paying him cash for everything and not getting lien waivers. We'll come to find out, unfortunately, I guess he was robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it all kind of came crumbling down. And it was a very sad situation, and I hate it for this person, because he really is a great guy and a good builder too. And unfortunately, the people across the street who didn't have any lien waivers, they had over close to $100,000 invested in this and literally lost almost all of that money. And I don't know what happened. If they got paid back because the builder went into bankruptcy, and they did get paid back some. And it was a real tragic, trying situation. And I'm only telling this story because it's important that you understand that with mechanic liens, you need to get a lien waiver. Or, well, let me back up. When you're paying a contractor for work, you should always get lien waivers. And that's going to protect you because, and you need to know who you're doing business with and really have an escrow agent or a title company, because if you're paying the general contractor and he's not paying, he or she, I should say, are not paying their suppliers or their subcontractors, if that whole deck of cards comes crumbling, falling down, well, you could have been paying money to the general contractor thinking they were paying their subcontractors and their suppliers, and because they weren't, guess what? Like in Missouri, within a 6-month period, the subcontractors and the suppliers can all file liens against where the work or the products were delivered. So in that example, and it was a real tragic situation. And again, I hated it for this person. And this has been years and years and years ago. They just it could happen to any of us, okay? Because we all rob Peter to pay Paul, and some of us get lucky if we pay Paul back on time. And, unfortunately in this situation, it didn't work that way. And so the people across the street were out a lot of money. So here's what I want you to know for the test, okay? Hopefully the story was there to kind of remind you that mechanic liens, the contractor, subcontractors, anyone who provided work or services there, and anyone who supplied materials for that job site can all file mechanic liens against the property. And in most states, they have a time period that can happen. And it's important that you file your mechanic's lien as soon as possible, because they get paid by what? Date and time of recording. And recording that gives constructive notice to the whole world. And the last point about all of this is that if you build a home or have someone do remodeling for you or construction at your property, always get lien waivers, and if at all possible, just let the title company or an escrow agent or your bank who's providing the funds help you with that. It's worth the extra fee to put the burden off on the title company, because for me, the person might come and say, "Hey John, I really am at a pinch. I need $10,000 now. Can you give me that advance for the work that's been done?" And I might say, "Hey, do you have a lien waiver?" "Well, I didn't have time to get one. I've got to go back. I'll get that to you later." And you write the check for $10,000 because the bank's put the money in your account. It would be better off if you just hired the money for an escrow agent, because guess what they're going to tell that person? "Bring us the lien waiver back and we'll give you the $10,000. So anyway, Didn't mean to draw that out too long and to make that too long and drawn out. But I did want to drive some points home so you understand a little bit about mechanic liens in that respect. Okay. They will ask you that question. Now, if mechanic's lien is not enforced before the statutory period ends, what happens to the lien? Well, it expires. That's why it's so important. You can't go and file it on another property. Mechanic liens can only be attached or filed against the property where the work was performed or the materials were dropped off, okay? Keep that in mind. Another little note there on mechanic liens, or video, pardon me, priority of liens. And then we talk about a license and an easement. And remember, a license, key word is a right. It's not an interest. It's only a right. Where an easement is an interest. So understand that. They love the license question on the exam. And the key point is a license is a right. A license will not transfer when the property is sold. So if you read a question, and these are going to be that second tier questions, they're normally not recall questions. So if you see that question that says, so-and-so was able to use a driveway, the property was sold, they couldn't use the driveway anymore, what's this kind of reflect, or what was going on here? It was a license, because it's just a right. It would end upon the sale of the property. It can end at any time. A license is similar to a ticket to a sporting event or a concert. If you do something that you shouldn't be doing at the concert or the sporting event, they can revoke your license. That ticket is just a license to come on the property to watch the sporting event or the concert. And if you act up and don't behave correctly, out you go, okay? But an easement, on the other hand, going back to an easement, that is more of an interest, and it will run with the land. In other words, it's considered an appurtenance. We talked about that this last week. That's going to transfer to the new owners. And remember that a surveyor can use more than one legal description to identify a parcel of land. We talked about that yesterday a little bit. Easement appurtenance and easements in gross. Remember, an easement in gross is normally like for utilities. Easement appurtenant is an easement that would actually be granted. This is some property that I own, and my real estate office used to be right here, and this was an easement appurtenant because this is a building that my mom and dad owned, and so I had an easement appurtenant for some of the parking and to get back to this area, or they actually had an easement appurtenant. And so when I sold my building, that ran with the land. And here's a good example. We have a lot and block, but then notice it's also using a meets and bounds. So two legal descriptions. I talked about that yesterday. Now, an easement in gross, same survey, but there are utilities running across here, and so there's an easement appurtenant between the two buildings, but we also have an easement in gross that's going across the front of the property. So you'll be asked to, what's the difference between an easement appurtenant and an easement in gross? And you have that information here. Remember, an easement in gross, it's really similar to utilities, and an easement in gross benefits a person or an entity rather than a parcel of land. Okay? So, and again, don't confuse an easement with a license. Remember, an easement is an interest. A license is a right or a privilege. John lets Mark use his fishing pond on the 1st of April every year. Mark has only been given a verbal authorization from John to fish in the pond and nothing else. What would this be an example of? Well, it's a license. It's just to fish in the pond. It's once a year. So it's an example of a license. Another video. And then we have easement by necessity, easement, a prescriptive easement, and we also have an express easement. Now, take a look at these three, because they love these questions on the test as well. An easement by necessity, a property's landlocked. I think I talked about this recently. And I'm going to just pull this up for you here. We'll look at these right here. If we had two parcels of land, this is lot A, lot B. You had another parcel over here that's lot C, and a parcel over here that's lot D. Now, right through here, we have a highway. And back here, we have lot E. And they own 100 acres. This person has 80 acres, we'll say. This person has 80 acres. And this is 40. And this is 40. Now, lot B and lot E are landlocked. And so is lot B. And put land locked. There we go. I'm writing at an angle here. So let's just say that there's a 20-foot easement that goes back here. And so this could be given through what is called an easement by necessity, because they were basically landlocked, okay? And the court could grant an easement by necessity. Now, that doesn't mean this would be free. They may have to pay some dollars for that. And that would be a court decision. And I'm sure it would determine, is there a road there? If this was a blacktop road back to here, I'm sure the court would say, we'll give you the easement B, but you're going to have to help compensate A for some of the money that they paid for this blacktop road here. Same way with E. So just keep in mind that would be an easement by necessity because it's landlocked. Now, this is what we call the dominant tenant, or pardon me. My bad, here we go. This is the servient tenant, and this would be the dominant tenant. I always like to say they're serving or allowing B to go across their land, and B is dominating the situation. So dominant tenant and servient tenant. See how that works? Now, if we had utilities, a gas line that ran through and a water line and perhaps electric, these would all be considered easement in gross, easement in gross. Okay, usually for the utility companies and so forth. Now, we could have a situation that the other one was a prescriptive easement, and I've seen this a lot, where you have a property, especially in my area, and here's the house, and we get a survey done, and there's an old garage back here, like this, that's been built across the property line. Now remember, the only way you can spot it, this is called an encroachment. An encroachment. And the only way you can spot an encroachment is through a survey. Okay? So what happens in this case is a lot of times we have to get a meets and bounds legal description, and for that little piece back here, they would probably, just give that, and they would do what is called a prescriptive easement. A prescriptive easement for that garage that's over the property, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go back here to our notes. So a prescriptive easement, notice easement given to someone because they have used the property for a certain length of time uninterrupted and without the owner of the land's permission. Each state has a required length of time for the use of the road, land in order to be given. So what I have noticed is that it's easier normally for us to correct this problem by getting a legal description for that little section there, which would be a meets and bounds. Remember, it would point a beginning and it would go and describe this little piece, and they would do just a prescriptive easement. It's a lot easier than just deeding that property. They could go to court and just say, well, I want this property. But generally we just get a prescriptive easement. We get a we get an easement drawn up for this piece, and we go to the owner over here. Should put that. You talk to the owner over here, and you explain that that's over on their land, and that technically legally they could go to the court and get this strip of property if they wanted to, but we've got an easier fix. Can you just sign this easement? And so we do a prescriptive easement and everything works fine, if that makes sense. But for the exam, just understand, easement by necessity, I showed you that you can't have landlocked properties. And easement by a prescriptive easement, keep in mind here, it was for a certain length of time. If this property, if this person built a garage and didn't get a survey, and that garage was only 1 year or 2 years old, this person here could make them tear it down and move it, in all reality. But my example, these are old St. Joe mineral workers' homes that had been there for 70 and 80 years, and they had the right because of the length of time. But if it's sooner than that, they could make them tear the garage down and move it off their property. An expressed easement, one party grants another easement to another through the use of a deed, and that's just generally when you do an easement, that's how that works. So how do you terminate an easement? Well, it could be through merger, abandonment. A merger is when one party buys the other party out. So when we looked at that, when we looked at this example earlier here that I drew for you, a merger would be that B bought out A. So if B purchases A or A purchases B, there's no need for that easement anymore. Now, this person might still need it, but let's just say they also bought them out as well. The merger, there's no need for the easement anymore. The second way would be through abandonment. They quit using the easement. Release, B just says, I don't want the easement anymore. They release it. Maybe the garage gets torn down and they don't, and I've seen that happen. The garage was so old, they just tore it down and you didn't need the easement. Overuse and by law, all of those could terminate an easement. An encroachment, we just showed you that. And remember, the only way you can determine an encroachment is through a survey. That's been an exam question. So they love that on the test. So I'd make a good note of that. Only way you can discover or find out if there's an encroachment is through a survey. Okay, so operation of law would terminate an easement. A deed could create an easement. It could also terminate an easement. Overburdening would terminate. Merger of the properties, that's a termination. Necessity would create an easement. Release would terminate. Condemnation, that would terminate an easement. Oh, that's not it, so it's create. No longer needed, terminate. Abandonment, terminate. Prescription, terminate. Nope, that's right, I knew that. That creates. All right, 8 of 10 cards correct. You got to read the questions carefully. And then I do a recap of the module. So we have covered that, and I'm going to just tomorrow, actually it's Saturday, I'm going to probably also stream tomorrow, but Monday we just have one more chapter, and that would be property ownership. That's what we're going to do on Monday. But I will probably do some live streaming over the weekend. I just don't know what time. I'm going to probably do math problems. But again, I want to just show you very quickly what you can do to get access to all of these. First of all, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So do that. But if you go to globalrealestateschool.com and you go to YouTube channel, you can also go out to YouTube and you can subscribe right here to the YouTube channel. Right here, you'll see real estate webinars. Anything I do will be right there. So notice there's yesterday's webinar. The other thing I've also done here is if you go to, I guess that's all I have there. But if you go to my channel, let's see, I need to switch accounts and go to this account right here. I have too many YouTube channels, and I need to go to my channel. I wanted to show you that. So if you just search for Global Real Estate School and subscribe, I really need you to do that. I want to build that up. Go to playlist. You will see this session here. I'm putting all of the property ownership. Anything I've done over property ownership will be right here. That's part of property ownership. So this session today will be under property ownership, but over the weekend, I need to close out of that, I'm going to do math videos. So what's really cool is I'll have them under the prep, but all of my math videos will be right here. So you can come out and you can watch any of the math videos that I've done. All right? So they're right there. So we'll be back Monday at 4 p.m., 4 to 5 on Monday. All next week I'll be live streaming. I'm doing this to help you all out, but you can always go to my YouTube channel. Be sure and subscribe. You'll get notifications as well. But also, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel or you go out there, you can go to those playlists. Now, I have a limited number of playlists at the Global Real Estate School where I sell my courses, but it's probably better to go to YouTube, search for Global Real Estate School, subscribe to the channel, and then just bookmark that. You can go out there, click on the playlist, and you can find the math videos and all the videos we're doing here as well. Let me see if we have any questions very quickly here. And I do not see any questions, so that's good. Hopefully people are watching. 3 are watching right now, and that's okay. A lot of people watch these at other times, but if you have a question, you can always type it in. You can always send to me an email as well, and I'll be glad to help you out. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great evening. Stay safe, stay in. Don't get discouraged about the real estate career. I gave did a little preaching yesterday at the end, so if you want to watch that, you can. But hopefully it was an encouragement, because you know what? This too will pass, and it's not the end of the world, and we're going to all be fine. And, you know, a lot of people may get out of the real estate business. So it just means there's less competition for you, right? So stay focused, stay determined, and you're going to do just fine. And remember, you can reach out to me anytime you have questions. Hope you have a great evening. I'll see you for sure on Monday. If you subscribe to the channel, I think sometimes it sends an email out, hey, John Mayfield's live streaming right now, so you can jump on this weekend. But I will talk to you on Monday for sure, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.